To everyone for joining us here today on the NAHJ meeting of October 28th. Blanca, can you please do the roll call?
Sure. I'll start with Nora Lopez,
Here.
Julio Cesar Chavez,
Here.
Eva Cabrera,
Here.
Aralis Hernandez,
Here.
Keldy Ortiz,
Here.
Blanca Rios here, Jennifer Marcial,
Here.
Jessica Retis,
Here.
McNally Torres,
Here.
and Luis Joel Mendez Gonzalez.
It's okay. It's okay.
And then Melissa Macaya.
Here.
Yep. Elwin Lopez. I don't think she's here. Ninette Sosa.
Here.
Johnny Cordova.
Here.
And Cristy Fajardo.
Here.
So it just looks like Elwin Lopez is, and I know I only know this because I work with her through News One. I think she's covering the hurricane. So yeah, so Hurricane Zeta.
No, that's true. Okay, well, thank you. We'll move next on to approval of minutes. We've got, I think, quite a bit of minutes to approve. Blanca?
Correct. Right, so we had, I sent you the minutes from the previous board under Finn that we had that one question and we corrected that. And then I also sent you minutes from the last meeting. Did everybody have a chance to review them?
Yes.
Are there any questions?
Just to clarify, Blanca, it's just the previous board members that have to approve the first set of minutes, and then this current board that approves the last set of minutes, correct?
Correct, actually, you're right. Yeah, so the first set of minutes which were prepared by Finn Gomez. I know, Yvette, you had that one question. We got that corrected, and I changed it regarding, I think it was in the financial report. So I guess it would just mean all the previous board members have to approve that.
Is there a motion to approve those meetings from one of the board members from that time?
I motion to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Do you got, I don't think it's necessary in this instance to do a roll call. I'll just call for ayes and nays from those board members who were members at that time. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, those minutes are approved. Next.
Should we approve these past minutes as well, that from our last meeting from this
Right.
board? Yeah.
We'll need a separate motion for that.
Okay. Well, can the secretary? I move to approve the last meeting minutes.
I'll second.
Is that Yvette? Right.
All right, there's no discussion, no clarifications on those minutes?
No, I have only one detail that I hope in the future, we start documenting the time when we go into executive session and the time that we come out of executive session and we come back in open session. It's just a matter.
I can definitely improve on that. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further discussion on the minutes of the last board meeting on October the 7th, again, I'll just take a simple ayes and noes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, wonderful. Then the minutes pass from our last board meeting, and we'll move along on our agenda, which is the president's report. And I actually don't have too much to report from our last meeting 3 weeks ago. We've been working on identifying and recruiting board members to fill some of the vacancies on the board. which you'll hear a little more about later. And we've also been trying to work on naming and deciding some of the committees to fulfill our objectives. And that's also on the agenda a little later. I will say that this board will work hard to understand the needs of our members and to be a useful resource to them. And as we move forward, my goal is to prepare our organization for an evolving future in journalism, and one that includes holding ourselves and the industry accountable for increasing diversity at the highest levels. We need to listen to and engage our membership in thoughtful advocacy, but we also need to do that in a way that adheres to our traditional journalism ethics, because we want to develop creative solutions and programming and partnerships that will empower our members and inspire trust in journalism. And with the election just around the corner, I also want to remind everyone to stay safe and be brave about the stories that you're choosing to cover. It's up to us to tell the stories of our gente and make sure that they are being told accurately and responsibly. So please be safe out there. Let's go ahead and move on to our VP of Finance report from Keldy and Alberto.
Hi, everybody, and I'm gonna go ahead and cover that since Keldy is just getting started.
Yeah.
And so he and I met on Monday and went over this. So I'm gonna just kind of cover it for this time or future times, but we'll figure that out. But yes, Keldy is on top of this. So if I can I share my screen here? Yeah.
Oh, and also just for the record, I had a conversation with the past financial officer, Geraldine, and yeah, that's gotten squared away. So, I guess moving forward, we'll Alberto and I will figure out, making the presentations for, each monthly report for the budget.
Yeah, the process is usually that the executive committee and the finance committee and the treasurer go over these things monthly, more in detail with the treasurer, and then the board gets these quarterly. But of course, you can always have access to this as needed. Can you all see my screen then? The top that says profit and loss versus actual?
Yes.
Great. And again, thank you to the board members that were a part of the new board orientation on Saturday. We went over some of these highlights as well. And then all of you were sent this report as well. Just some highlights of kind of where we are and some things to note. Just right here where it says grants 4,600, you can see that we have over $1 million and $68,000 in just grant money alone this year. And that is the largest amount that at least I've been able to find on any records that we received in a single grant year. So that is huge for us. You combine that with the fact that we did have a convention and we were able to actually have the convention when I didn't think we were going to do it. And the revenue, sponsorship, all of that is detailed here. And so far, our budget for income is 1.839825. So if you notice on the next column here, it was our initial budget was 1.5. So we've exceeded our revenue goal. And that's with 2.5 months more to go, and with another payment coming in from NAHJ. So we're pretty close to crossing that $2 million mark. And also this being the highest budget year that NAHJ has had. When you look at expenses, those are all laid out here. But also to note here that the expenses where we are is at 1.314. So we are under in our expenses of where we should be. And so that takes us to a net balance of $500,000. Now, some of those numbers will adjust, but we're on track for this being another very financially lucrative year for us. Those are the highlights. Any questions? And if you do have questions, feel free to send those to myself or Keldy, and then we're happy to respond and provide more information.
And these are the same numbers that you emailed the board members earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, these are the numbers that were shared for the orientation and for the report that was sent on Monday with the operational update. These numbers come directly from the accountant, so I don't touch any of these spreadsheets. As a matter of fact, all of that is managed through the accountant. Okay. All right, thank you.
A
Do you want
lot
me
of
to
the new board.
continue, Nora?
Go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted, Alberto.
I think the executive report is next. Should I just continue?
Yeah, just real quickly, I completely forgot, even though we just discussed it before the meeting started, to announce to our members that the chat will be turned off during the meeting. There will be a portion later in the evening where we will open up the chat and folks can speak up and make a comment if they wish. You can raise your hand or send a message on the chat asking to be allowed to speak. But we will take care of that towards the end of the meeting. And go ahead, Alberto.
And
Great.
wait, sorry, I did want to clarify because the way you put it, Nora, when you initially put this is because it would be the same as people speaking in the middle of a city council meeting. And that's generally not something that would be allowed or courteous.
Yes,
Or even
correct.
Or even a in-person NHJ board meeting. It just would happen in the middle of that.
Thank you both for clarifying.
All right, thank you. And as I shared with you, I always send a monthly report to the board members. As a matter of fact, I think most will find that I always overshare. So if you read it, you're gonna have a lot of information, but if not, I'm just gonna have some of the highlights just to share, as I did in the written report, that we were 6 members away from 3,200. As of now, we're 12 members away because the way that our membership follows is, there's members that kind of rotate off when their anniversary date comes up and so on. And so we're now at 12 members away from 3,200. So that we didn't get the 6 that I had hoped. But we, again, are very close to 3,200 members, which would be the highest membership base that NAHJ has ever had. So a big victory to already add to the work that you guys are doing. As I mentioned in the report, the breakdown is 124 academic members, 246 associate members, 246 lifetime members, 211 regular members, 1,725 regular members, and 893 students. So that is the breakdown. If there are any questions, let us know. And again, those numbers kind of fluctuate, but we try to keep those as much as possible to where they're at the moment.
Alberto, question.
Sure.
I saw this also in your report. You said 246 associate, 246 lifetime, 211 regular, and then 1,725 regular. Is there a difference between the 211 and the 1,725?
Actually, I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I need to verify that with Janet, but the 211, it's tricky because technically it's not a category in the bylaws and they don't get to vote if they're not a journalist. So the bylaws apply to that. So from what I understand, the 211 are not a part of the 1726. So the total number is close to 3,200. So I'll verify that, but that's how right now it's laid out.
But they're both classified as regular members?
No, lifetime members are not qualified. They're only regular members if they're working in journalism. You could have.
Forgive me. You said 246 lifetime members, right?
No, let me start over. Okay. Academic is 124.
Mm-hmm.
Associate is 246.
Mm-hmm.
Lifetime is 211.
Got it. Okay.
Regular 1725, and student 893.
Yeah, you cited twice though.
Okay, so my apologies. It's also written in the report in writing that I sent on Monday. So if you want to verify that, that's probably the more correct numbers. But I'll also verify with Janet, because I know that this is something that kind of came up. Again, there are lifetime members that are not active journalists or are in different professions. And so just because they're a lifetime member doesn't mean that they would actually get to vote in the regular elections. So cool. So get us to 3,200 and plus. So if you can, Robert did a fantastic job with that. And a lot of us ended up buying memberships for our family members who were even interested in this. I know my nephew got a membership. My niece who's studying marketing got a membership. So I think those are associate members, but they still count towards our overall goal. Also happy to share, I shared this with Nora last, I guess right before the last board meeting, but we have received a renewal grant from Democracy Fund for $200,000, which is a 2-year grant that actually starts this year and will carry over into next year. So this brings the total with Democracy Fund just in grant money to $410,000.
How much was the Democracy Fund again?
I'm sorry?
How much was the Democracy Fund, the renewal one?
200,000. With my report, I think it's probably helpful if you also go back to the written report, because it should be the same numbers. And while I might have made that mistake, I'm actually reading back from that. So it should be easier to kind of capture some of that. Again, I attached the financial statements there as well. And also something new and I think kind of fun is that we have a new partnership with the White House Correspondents Association for a new scholarship, thanks to Finn Gomez. This is now a scholarship of $2,000 for a student that will get to go to the luncheon, get to go to the gala, and also will be assigned a mentor. And of course, receive that $2,000 scholarship. So that is a new scholarship that's been added.
Do we select that winner, or is just somebody that's selected from among our members?
Well, it's selected from our members, yeah. And in some of the scholarships, we provide a finalist or two if there's a partner, and some of them we just select on our own. So it just really depends on the partner, and we'll narrow that down. So, and again, this is a new partnership for us. Yes?
Could I request that we get more specific details on like what the scholarship stuff, like who would choose the mentor and how would the choosing of this student take place? Is that just with our regular sort of scholarship determination process, or would this be sort of a separate thing?
In this particular case, because the timeline is off, we're likely to look at students who have expressed an interest in this area and or have been recipients in the past. And then we would narrow down the list and provide that to them. So, but in some of them, they line up better with our entire process. So it just happens when that process opens.
So we can get more details though, right? Like on paper?
Yeah, those details will also be on the website, which everything that the scholarships include as far as, the amounts and all of that is there. I don't know the process of how they're going to select a mentor, to be honest with you. Leslie Ann, I think you're there. Did that get detailed out?
We haven't talked about that detail yet, but what the WHCA will be selecting the mentor. So we can, as we move forward, ask them more questions about that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Leslie Ann. If you can keep us abreast of that, that would be good. So everybody's kind of curious about that.
Sure. And then I would say that another highlight is that we're just having some very exciting discussions with Univision about a training partnership that would be year-long in a lot of different areas, with at least half the trainings being targeting for mid-career and potential mentoring for journalists that are interested in going into management that are at a higher level in their career. It will include trainings for students, but again, they're very aware that there's a need for more mid-career journalist development. So that's something really fun, not fun, it's fun and exciting that's coming up. I guess that's it really regarding highlights. Are there any other questions or things that were also shared in the report that you might have questions on?
Can you talk about, this is McNally, can you talk about this Google DI initiative? And I guess we didn't get that, but what is that about?
So Google put out for the second year a diversity and inclusion initiative that focused on innovation and ways to bring systemic DE&I. So mostly focusing on publishers that were doing some innovative stuff, that are working on artificial intelligence as a means to incorporate, catching where discrimination is being placed, where names are being used for the wrong reason, and so on. So they had, I believe they had 288 applicants. I was a part of the jury. They had 3 organizations that were part of the internal, plus the internal staff. And so we reviewed, I think they reduced it down to about 45 candidates. And from there, they broke down the group into 2. So I had to review 17 applications. And then over a 2-day period, we were all a part of this and voted and gave our opinions on those that were selected and why or why not. So for me, my biggest interest, frankly, is because of Palabra and exploring ways that we can potentially apply for that in the future. I think being able to hear how they look at things, what they're looking for is just valuable insight. And also, I will tell you that I can't disclose a lot because it's a confidential process, but I think some of the big projects that we've launched are in line. And I think that there's going to be more alignment for funding potentially in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Anybody else?
Yeah, I just wanted to see. I think we may have talked about this. The CDC, the partnership for with Palabra.
Yes. So this is early, but the CDC has a partnership with NLGJA, currently focused on HIV prevention and discussion around HIV Latino Awareness Day, which just happened on October 15th. NAHJ ultimately kind of, well, let's just say that we have a possibility to be able to do a little bit more directly with the CDC on storytelling and potentially even a fellowship that could do some storytelling around this area from the CDC. It's an early process, but they do multi-year grants. So if it is something that lines up, we would be getting this contract and it would be for 2 years.
All right, thank you, Alberto.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Just also to be clear, I may raise the money, but Ricardo Sandoval is the managing editor. And so he really decides the content and he really kind of outlines the parameters to ensure that there is no conflict of interest and or that the content is being directed by a funder. That's not what we're doing here. So even when we have any partnership, unless it's clearly labeled as editorial or advertorial or provided by, then the sponsors don't really have any say in the actual content that is completely managed separately. And so we're not there, although the Toyota partnership is now directed towards Palabra. And so, we had to iron all that before that was agreed upon. But Ricardo is a seasoned professional. He does that with PBS. And so he'll apply the same ethics to our standards.
So to be clear, I know it's early, but to be clear, they're basically giving us our money and say, hey, if you do stories on these topics, we'll pay for it.
What depends? Who are you talking about?
Talking about CDC.
Yes, but it would be more specific. It would be, specific stories around HIV and Latinos.
Okay.
But it doesn't say you have to use CDC data as an example, or like you don't put an endorsement on the CDC. They're just paying for the stories to be done.
And they're suggesting topics, not specific.
Correct. Yeah.
Goals.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, we can't sell stories unless it's very, very well labeled. I mean, I think in our orientation we had a discussion about kind of United, and I think we clarified that it was never at what NHJ didn't do, but that we weren't selected, and in part because they were at the time going for influencers who want to be able to fly United and tell people that they flew United to this convention and this conference. And my experience with journalists is that you don't want to do that, and you don't want to be forced to do that. And that potentially causes some conflict of interest there. And so, you know, those are things that happen, especially with corporate partners. Any other questions?
Sí, solamente quería secundar las palabras de Arelis y me gustaría tener un poquito más de detalles sobre la beca de la Casa Blanca, específicamente cuál va a ser el proceso de selección, cómo se va a seleccionar a esos 2 becados, y a mí me gustaría saber más adelante si va a ser una beca que se va a dar solamente este año o si se van a dar tal vez con varios años consecutivos, solamente para añadir eso.
Casi todo empieza con un año a la primera vez para ver cómo funciona. Y de ahí continuamos o no continuamos, todo depende. Y es una beca, no son 2. Es una beca de $2,000.
Perfecto, muchas gracias.
Sí.
Any other questions of Alberto?
Again, if not now, feel free to shoot me a note. Happy to jump into a little more detail or conversation. I would say that for your reporting purposes, a lot of these themes kind of carry out when they're larger initiatives. And so you kind of see in November any updates that were tied to that in December and so on. Some of the stuff is confidential, meaning it's in early stages and not appropriate for public discussion, and or I'm providing details that are not public, but I'll always provide you the information as appropriate. Okay.
Okay,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Alberto. We'll move on to the discussion of replacing some of the vacancies that we have on the board. We had 3 wonderful applicants for Region 2, 1 very strong applicant for Region 6, but unfortunately none for Region 1, which is Puerto Rico and Virgin Islands. So we'll have to hold Region 1 vacant until we can recruit someone to serve in that post. And hopefully we can do that between now and December and approve someone at our December meeting for Region 1. If anybody out there knows of someone in Puerto Rico who might be interested, please pass along their name and number, and we'll be happy. Oh, wait a minute, I misspoke. We did have 1 Region 1 applicant. However, the applicant was not working in Puerto Rico, although she works for a company that works in Puerto Rico. But we decided that it needs to be somebody who is in Puerto Rico or the Virgin Islands. But yes, we did have one person who expressed interest in Region 1. My apologies for misspeaking. The applicant that we got for Region 6, which is the Midwest, was Valerie Mia Juarez. She's the multimedia reporter, producer, assignment manager for ABC and Fox affiliates in Central Nebraska. And for Region 2, which serves the Northeast section of our country, we got three letters of interest. One from Wilbert Will Cruz, who is executive editor for news practices at ABC News. He also served on our bylaws committee over the summer. Amy Rodriguez, who's a bureau chief investigative producer, with News 12 Networks, I believe in Brooklyn. And Jamie Stockwell, who is the deputy national editor at the New York Times. All of these were reviewed by a small committee of the board. Is there a motion from that committee to approve regional directors?
I have a motion, Nora. I make a motion to appoint Jamie Stockwell to Region 2 Director and Valerie Mia Juarez to Region 6 Director.
They would need to be done individually.
They have to be separate.
We have to make a individual, okay? So I make a motion to appoint Jamie Stockwell to Region 2 Director.
I second that.
All right, is there any further discussion on the nominee?
Nora, I think I sent you a note, but also you just want to make sure that that everybody has been vetted in the same way that everybody on this board has. So they would need, that process usually happens before. So if you might still need to have them all go through that process as well.
Okay,
We need to confirm employment and also membership and all those things.
yes. I did confirm employment and membership for those folks, so. But we can still have them go through the process afterwards. I have a motion on the floor for Region 2, Jamie Stockwell. Can we go ahead and take the vote? We'll do a roll call vote on this one. Blanca.
Could I get some feedback from the committee on Jamie, just some background on her involvement
Sure.
with PA, just to get to know her a little bit better?
Sure. Jamie is with the New York Times. Before that, she was at the San Antonio Express News, where she was managing editor. She's also worked at the Washington Post. She has served on a variety of boards, including the APME, Texas APME. One of the things that we liked about her was that we were trying to go for some diversity in terms of the fields. So she was representing print, and that was one of the things that we liked about her. If you have any other specific questions, that's what I'm thinking off the top of my head, but I'm happy to answer it. Any other questions? If not, let's go ahead and take the vote.
I have one question. So the vetting process, you yourself confirmed. So the vetting process for us when we ran was basically just confirming, were you a member as of the date of record? And are you actually employed by who you say you're employed? So you're an active journalist. Although from what I take that Alberto was saying and what you were saying, they haven't had that happen with the staff, or I mean, for me, it wasn't staff, for me, it was Geraldine. But you did that. You performed the same checks
Yeah.
that were performed, correct? So they have been vetted then.
I made sure there were members because, you know, we have the role, we have all the members, so made sure there were members, yes. But we can provisionally appoint them until pending the full background check by the staff. That's another way we could go.
I don't have a problem with it if you've already checked yourself,
Okay.
because that's pretty much all we went through anyway.
Yeah. Okay, let's do the roll call vote then.
Okay, I'll start with Nora Lopez,
Aye.
Julio Cesar Chavez,
Aye.
Eva Cabrera,
Yes.
Arelis Hernandez,
Yes.
Keldy Ortiz,
Yes.
Blanca Rios, yes, Jennifer Marcial Ocasio,
Yes.
Jessica Retis. Is Jessica still here? I think I see you.
Sorry, I was muted. Sorry, yes.
McNally Torres,
Sí.
Luis Joel,
Yes.
and now the regional directors, Alwin Lopez, who's not here, Ninette Sosa,
Yes.
Johnny Cordova,
Yes.
Cristy Fajardo.
Yes.
Okay, so it's unanimous.
Oh, and me, Blanca.
Who am I missing? I'm sorry.
Melissa.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I skipped
No,
you.
it's fine. I say yes. No worries.
So sorry about that.
Okay, is there, the motion seems to have passed, correct? All right, is there a motion for the other vacancy?
I can motion to approve Region or Valerie Mia Juarez to Region 6 Director.
I'll second.
McNally, okay.
I have a question. Was she the only one for this region?
Yeah, well, so I was the region director, Region 6 director, reached out to at least 3 potential people, and just the timing wasn't right. So Valerie Juarez stepped up, and I think it's interesting because she's in Nebraska. I was in Chicago, where we already have a really strong network of journalists and a big chapter. And I think it really helps to have someone so far out in, not really far out in the region because it's still in the region, but just in a smaller market where she's the only Latina in her newsroom, which she said in her letter. And, you know, it's more of a struggle, and I think there's more of a need in that area. That's my opinion. I think and plus she's also, she was a former student representative of the board in 2015, I believe it was. So she's definitely has a connection to NAHJ. I believe Yvette Cabrera was her mentor for a mentorship program, so she's familiar with her. And I met her a couple of years ago, and I think she's a great candidate. So I'm really happy to have her on.
It's a huge swath. Region 6, it's Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Michigan, Minnesota, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, North Dakota, Ohio, South Dakota, and Wisconsin.
Yes.
It's a huge area.
And it's also really hard to start chapters just because they're such small markets, and the turnaround rate is really quite active. It's kind of like having student chapters. We had a Kansas one, it dissolved, and other chapters dissolved. So she has been in that area, and I said, it's nice to be able to connect a little bit farther out.
So everyone who's not in Chicago and in that huge tract of land will have her to represent them, whereas Chicago people already have their chapter to represent them.
Right. I mean, I'm in Chicago. I'm secretary. We have a really strong Chicago chapter. Ugo's in Chicago. I mean, we have huge representation. Whereas, yes, to answer your question.
Cool. I think that's good.
Yeah.
Good for her.
I can definitely vouch for Valerie and her commitment to journalism. I've known her since she got into the business, have watched her move through her career. She also served as secretary for CCNMA, Latino Journalists of California. So as a volunteer, she's been dedicated. So I was excited to hear that she's up for this.
Is there any other discussion? Any more questions about the candidate? Okay, then let's go ahead and take the roll call.
Okay, Nora Lopez.
Aye.
Julio Cesar Chavez.
Aye.
Yvette Cabrera. Do I have to say everybody's last name? Yvette. Arelis.
Aye.
Keldy.
Aye.
Blanca. Aye. Jennifer.
Aye.
Jessica.
Yes.
McNally.
Aye.
Luis Joel.
Aye, here.
Melissa Makaya.
Aye.
Alwyn Lopez, who's not here. Ninette.
Yes.
Johnny.
Yes.
And Cristy.
Aye.
Great. So unanimous. Well, except for Alwyn, so.
Okay, wonderful. Well, welcome, Jamie Stockwell and Valerie. We look forward to working with the two of you. Apologies for now. I know next time I will let the staff do the vetting, but I hope everybody's comfortable with the folks that are joining us, and I look forward to a good relationship with everyone. Moving.
I have a question about Region 1. If it's someone who lives and has worked as a reporter in the Caribbean for a long time, but they're not currently a member, I don't have anyone in mind, but like, could someone join just to be appointed? Or are we kind of setting not a data record, but a requirement that they need to have been a member, not just for this?
That is my preference, that they already be a member. And that, you know, they've already have some experience with NAHJ. Hopefully NAHJ has played a role in their career versus somebody who has, you know, doesn't really know, you know, what it is our mission is and what it is that we're trying to do. So I also think it's important that it be somebody from there. You know, I think I've heard from some board members that that region sometimes feels a little disenfranchised from us. So I think it's important that it be, you know, somebody who works there. Anything else? Okay, well then let's move on to the next topic, which is old business. We'll hear from Arelis Hernandez, who will give us an update on bylaws.
Yes, so we will reconvene the bylaws committee and open it up to any members who would like to be a part of that continuing review after the first of the year is when we plan to do that. And the first item of business will be going over, what took place with the elections this year and drafting a series of recommendations to the board about, whether there is anything to be done or if we run, a set of new bylaw proposals again. But that will reconvene. So if you are interested, please send me an email at ahernandez@nahj.org if you are interested in participating.
Arelis, I have a question. Should we send an email to our members to see?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
McNally, I think, once we finalize all the committees, we'll send out an email to members and let them know these are the committees and who to contact if they're interested in wanting to serve in one of them. Absolutely. We
Awesome.
want general members to be a part of these committees and help us as we sort through these matters and things.
I had a question. How often do you think the committee is going to be meeting? So for any member who's interested in joining, how often do you think the committee would be meeting? And are you aiming to possibly put something on the ballot for the election next summer?
I think that's going to be up to the committee, at least in the first meeting, in terms of your second question, right? And your first question, how often will they be meeting? I think at this point right now, because we're sort of wanting to review what took place with the election and looking at the numbers and the issue of quorum and whatnot, that first initial meeting, we'll be able to judge after that point how often that committee might meet. It could be something where it's like mensualmente, once a month or something like that. It could be more depending on us sort of revisiting the series of priorities that we had sort of sketched out with the bylaws committee prior to in the last iteration.
Any other questions? Okay, Melissa is going to give us an update on the elections committee.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Nora, for this space to share this with you all. So I was on the 2020 elections committee alongside Geraldine, who's no longer on the board, but she sends her regards, and Cristy Fajardo, who's still on the board. And we just had a really productive meeting last Monday with the committee, but also our advisory committee, who's been so key throughout the process. So we wanted to share with you all overall things that we think from the elections committee we can continue to build upon to strengthen the elections process moving forward, and then some recommendations from the elections committee that we hope to share for a new elections committee that's formed hopefully by early 2021. So in terms of overall things, and I'll try to make this brief, and I'll definitely put this all in a Google Doc to share with you all and also with our new elections committee when that's formed. Overall things that we thought worked well. Creating an electronic way for collecting signatures via the membership suite was something new that we did this year and seemed to really streamline the process. A big thank you to Yaneth and Yunuen and everyone who's helped support that. 2, the creation of the Elections Hub. That was something fairly new that we expanded this year to kind of serve as a place to guide our members. That was something we hope continues to be built. 3, an advisory committee was hugely helpful to the committee. It was comprised of members who were not on the board, and they really were able to provide just very valuable perspectives to us on things that we may be missing or things that we need to be considering in the process. And then we had a candidate forum this time. Due to COVID, since we weren't in an actual physical space at a conference or so we'd love to do something like that again, maybe possibly 2 forums. That was something that was discussed. In terms of recommendations for the board of things that we learned out of this experience and takeaways that we think can help strengthen the process, something that was very much shared by both the committee and the advisory committee was to form the committee much sooner. A lot of times we form these election committees maybe at the end of spring or only early summer, and we really would love or suggest that this be formed earlier in the year so that maybe we can hold info sessions on the elections for our members. Maybe we can try to get that enthusiasm early on. So the committee, the past committee recommends that this committee be formed early 2021 at the earliest. We also recommend that a survey be done for members either in December or January. We understand members are really busy right now with the election. So a survey to get input from them on what they liked about the process and what could be better. And please, Cristy or Arelis, feel free to, Arelis joined us in our meeting last week, so if I miss anything, please jump in. Another thing that we discussed was the email of the candidates. Right now, the candidates receive an email, forgive me, of the membership so that they can send emails to the members as part of their campaign process. Due to privacy concerns related to that, we really would suggest and recommend that there be a reflector email address rather than individual membership email addresses so that candidates can still campaign, but we don't have an issue where we're sharing information of the membership with a wider group. Another recommendation is that a board development committee be established aside from the elections committee. This would be a committee whose sole job is to get people to serve on the board, to connect with people who have expressed interest or we're seeing on our local chapters that are kind of really have that potential to join the board. Another recommendation is that the date of record be closer to the election time. A lot of members, and I know Yaneth got bombarded, sorry Yaneth, of members saying, hey, I just realized that I missed the deadline and I couldn't vote. So recommendation is that that be maybe closer to the election. Yes?
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Arelis.
Be clear, that would necessitate a bylaw change as well.
Correct. So that those go hand in hand for the timeline of that. Another suggestion was campaigning during election week. In the past, every elections committee, especially election committee's chair, has made that decision on whether or not candidates can campaign the last week of that election. And we had really fruitful discussion last week. And overall, we really landed on candidates should be able to campaign in that last week, just because it's a final push. It's when there's a lot of enthusiasm from members, but possibly not letting campaigns occur on the day of the election. That decision has been made in the past of not having campaign during the last week for many reasons, but mostly because they want to have a professional kind of environment in the last week. But we think that, you know, as long as we have clear discussions with the candidates and have them sign the code of conduct when they are vetted, we think that we could still have that professional environment still in that last week and still have them be able to campaign. And then just a few more and I will end my time. The elections committee also discussed the possibility in one future of having a board position specifically for freelancers, possibly a VP of freelance, so that our freelancer members feel represented on the board and also represented through the election process. And again, with the election and the ByLaws Committee very tied, one thing that we found, because we did not reach a quorum in our last election, is possibly discussing and recommending having the board election committee define voting quorum to be equivalent to 10% of the membership rather than a 1/3, to make sure that we get that quorum to be able to pass those new laws or measures that we're looking to implement. And then lastly, another recommendation from the board is that we create a list of standardized questions as part of the vetting process. As you know, for many of you who, because you were elected, you went through the vetting process, we contact references and ask them about, to confirm that you're a working journalist, to just get a sense of your involvement with NHJ. So we recommend creating a standardized list that the election committee can use as part of the process. And I think those are kind of the overlining recommendations that the committee wanted to share to you all. And again, I'll make sure to get this in a doc. And once we have our new committee, elections committee, in place, to make sure that we share this with them. And again, thank you to our staff. Thank you to BA and her team for just helping us throughout the elections process. And thank you all who are now on the board for your patience as well in the process. And I'm hoping that from what we learned this time, we can continue to improve and build upon those things.
And to be clear, this is simply an effort to sort of standardize in some ways the process, but still without sort of going the route of, standardizing inside of a concrete bylaws thing, but, sort of setting aside a sort of a policy guideline for best practices moving forward for election committees. And I think, formally, right, the recommendation would be eventually, once we get these down on paper, to create a standing committee, a standing election committee, that this would be standard for every year that NAHJ has an election, and therefore, would have these guidelines in place. I mean, we don't have to adopt every recommendation, of course, and probably sometime in future should have just an agenda item to talk about elections once we have the results from the survey, that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what we wanted to accomplish tonight is just kind of present these recommendations to you all. So it's kind of sharing what we learned from this experience, but we're hoping that definitely in the beginning of 2020, to Aurelisa's point, we can really define that even more and standardize that even more when we have the new committee and that survey that we'd love to do with our membership.
Yeah, Melissa, I think probably the operational orientation might also be useful to be done when people are running for office, so they actually know more of the details.
That's a great idea.
There were some things that were missing during the campaign process that were just not correct or just needed more information. So I think that's something to add. And then the other, I would say, well, I lost my train of thought, so just we'll leave with that recommendation.
Yeah, and we hope from this that, it's an ongoing learning process. I think that, I hope that all of you, and we love all the feedback that we've gotten so far. So please, if you have any ideas, things that we can continue to do better, I'm hoping that we can continue to have this ongoing discussion on this.
Absolutely. Thank you for that report. Board members, anything else to talk about elections?
I wanted to add that I think that it's super important to have that streamlined as well, because many of the local chapters mirror what national does, and that will definitely help out especially like in Central Florida, for example, which is where I am. We mirrored kind of like what national was doing just to avoid any conflicts or anything. So I think that many of the regions and local chapters would take advantage as well of having all these recommendations like written down and streamlined.
Absolutely.
I did remember, sorry. The other thing I would suggest that maybe, I don't know if it directly ties to the elections, but I think it would also be helpful to have an orientation that is from board members to board members, so that you guys can, like I said, I provide the operational update, which is on the dailies. But I think just so there's some consistent way of making sure you guys share the information with each other. I know that was in the bylaws as part of the transition process idea during 30 days, but with or without it, I think it benefits everybody if you guys hear from people that served in your region or in your job, just as Keldy did with Geraldine and so on. It's just that there's a lot of information that I assume you guys know, but then you may not, and vice versa. So we want to make sure that you have some information that comes from peer to peer.
Thank you, Alberto. Anything else? Any other discussion on that subject? Okay, if not, I'd like to see if maybe Julio wants to give us a little update on how the hostile environment training went, what kind of response we got to that.
Yeah, so the hostile environment training, we ended up doing 3
total classes. Not all of them got filled. And some of them were actually repeats from people who were not able to make their original appointment. We did budget for 5 classes if the demand outstripped the initial 3. Although there was extra demand than just the initial, we were able to just squeeze the extra people in that final class instead of setting up those 2 extra classes. So it wasn't as many people as I was hoping for, but it was a good number of people at least. People from both big papers and small publications, and it went pretty good. My hope is that anyone who was in that training can then at least share the basics of what they remember with their coworkers. That way, if someone wasn't able to make it to the actual training, I know that one of my friends at Univision here in DC is going to do that. He's going to share some information with his coworkers. I'm hoping that we can set these up on a rolling basis later on. For now, I mean, we have less than a week left in the election, so we really don't have time to fit more of them before stuff happens on November 3rd. But hopefully later on we can provide some more of these hostile environment trainings, not just for protests in the US, but also they do provide training for what to do like in natural disasters and stuff like that, which I think would be good for us to provide to our members.
I got good feedback, and enough that I went ahead and set one up for our newspaper at the Express News, and we did it on Monday, and I sat in on some of it. And it was very good. It was very useful. Lots of good information, things that I hadn't thought about. But one quick tip, guys, it included a demonstration on clothing and synthetic clothing, the kind that we all wear because it's dry weave and flicks moisture away. Yeah, don't wear that if you're going to go to a protest where there might be potential for that stuff to happen, because it went up like that in flames. So that was very, very dramatic.
Yeah.
Forgive me. I was just wondering, numbers wise, we separated what, 20 slots for each of those 3 classes, is that right?
So it was the original deal with Raj. His classes are set up to be for 20 people. We signed up to 25 people, banking on some no-shows, and there were no-shows in every single one of the 3 classes that we did set up. A couple of them, for example, Molly Hennessy Fisk from the LA Times, was because she was working and wasn't able to make it to the original one she signed up, so she wasn't allowed to sign up again for a different class. Another thing that we did was, we just kind of let people join. They did set up a wait list for that final class, and I think that everyone who was on that wait list was allowed to join that final class.
So can we say about 75?
Go ahead.
Well, if there was like 20 to 25 a session, so was there a total of like 75 members who participated in the end, or?
I don't know how many members participated total, because I know we have the number.
We had a total of 58.
58 actually participated, or 58 signed up is my question.
58 participated.
Cool. So 58 participated. We had more than 58 sign up. But like I said, not everyone actually.
There was only one class that had a wait list of 25. The others did not.
Oh, okay, cool. So that's good. But yeah.
And to be clear, Julio, I think Julio says that it was, I got a lot of good feedback too from folks who work at my paper and have received hostile environment training in other countries. Roger is actually the real deal. So if we do open this up again, I really would encourage everyone on the board to try and make one of these sessions. Like, I cannot tell you how important it is to know how to remove tear gas. I know you might be the producers sitting behind the desk in some cases, but this stuff is crucial. And I've taken hostile environment training and been deployed in other places around the world, and this was very useful.
Yeah,
So
the feedback was very good and strong. And again, thank you, Julio Cesar.
Yeah.
Our challenge we always have is no matter what, when we offer something for free, people take it for granted and then don't sign up. So even when you have them pay something, you might likely have somebody who actually shows up because they invested something. So those are all things to consider as we look forward.
And
Yeah,
this is Cristy Fajardo. I took it. It was excellent. I do also highly recommend it. And that Molly Hennessy Fisk actually was in my class, which was the second one. So so I guess she did get into one.
Yeah, she signed up for the first one and then made it to the second. But yeah, the tips basically break down into: do not get between the protesters and the police. You don't know when someone's going to throw something or shoot something at each other, and you're just caught in the middle. And like Nora said, do not wear like workout shirts under your clothes. Just make sure you wear like a cotton, even if it's just like a normal undershirt or a tank top or something. Just wear plain cotton. That way it's not on fire. And something we did that you no longer have time to do, but just make sure that you write down the phone number of someone at your desk on your arm. That way, worst case scenario, if police decide to start arresting protesters, at least you'll be able to call your desk and let them know you got arrested or hurt or something. So yeah, stay safe.
Nora, you're muted.
Nora, you're mute.
Sorry. It's because my brother was getting a bunch of ice from the ice machine and I thought everybody could hear it, so muted myself. If there's no more discussion on that, we will.
Actually, I did want to bring something up. This is Cristy.
Go
Again,
ahead, Cristy.
There were two incidents last night involving journalists in Los Angeles and the LAPD. Neither of them are NHJ members, but one is a journalist of color. He was tackled and his camera and mic were broken. And there was another one who was shot with a non-lethal round. It does seem like this is becoming an increasing problem in this market. SPJ LA has issued a statement, I think, asking for a full investigation. I think it would be helpful if NHJ backed them up as well.
I agree, and a great segue to the start of our conversation on committees, because as I've discussed with a few of you all individually, we've got a lot of work and it's already 8 o'clock, so we'll probably only do a little bit of, we won't finish it all, we won't get through all of the committees that we want to do. But one that that we really do need to fill today, or at least get it going, is the rapid response committee, which would do things like respond to this type of incident. I think that's a really urgent one. We've had it on and off over the years. And that's one where it can be comprised. I'd like it to be comprised of both board members and some non-board members who can speak with authority on these types of issues and speak for NAHJ and respond quickly and promptly. So that is one that I would like to get through today. We also need to establish or just formalize the executive committee so that we can start meeting with Alberto on a monthly basis and start that process going. So those are two that I would like us to go ahead and approve today. And then I'm open to seeing which other ones we think are urgent enough that we need to get through. We have like a dozen committees proposed, guys, from our emails discussions, including obviously the bylaws and election and membership and training. We've also discussed with, I think it's, I'm sorry, Luis, who would like to talk about doing one specifically for students. I think that's a good idea. Maybe a Spanish language. We've also discussed a freelance, which could be a committee, or somebody else brought out the idea of maybe creating a board position. And then fundraising and finance and elections. McNally, did I leave something off? I think I may have.
I need to look up my.
I think there was a finance committee as well.
Yeah, finance is definitely, yes.
I didn't hear, but I think through McNally's suggestions, it was a strategic plan committee.
Yes, that's very important. I know, Alberto. Yes, and again, this is a proposal, people. This is not, black and white. I mean, this is for us to get talking about these things. And everybody has ideas, and I'm just pitching the first proposal.
No, I think it's wonderful. One of my concerns is to look at all of these and decide maybe, do we want to marry some of these?
Yes.
Because having 10 or 12 committees is a lot, guys. And, we all have jobs, and so it's a lot to ask. So we needed to figure out which are the really important ones, or how do we combine them so that we can accomplish what we want to accomplish. And from the feedback,
if I may,
yes.
This is one of the things with that we just got a report from the election committee, all this. This is also a way to get people in the membership involved. It's not only that us as board members, will be involved in some of these committees, according to what your interests are, right? But also bringing people in. And the way I see it, those are the future board members. Those are people that you get them engaged in the process. And that's how they vote. And that's how they bring other people. So to me, this is a two-way street with a lot of pluses. Yes, it's work, and maybe we don't need to do all these things. I'm just toss those out. Now, I know the strategic planning committee is something that is very important. We need to look ahead of time, at least 5 years. When you have a nonprofit, me having the experience that I have building a nonprofit organizations, I know from the business strategic planning point, that's very important. We need to be looking ahead. And I know Alberto agrees with me with that, and he has more experience than me on this. So to me, that's, you bring people in, they have some expertise in the membership that can contribute to that, but you also bring new people into the fold that, have ideas, because we all have ideas, and this is how, we move forward. So that's what I had to say.
No, that's wonderful. Anybody else have any ideas? Yes, go ahead, Jessica.
Thank you. So I have tons of ideas for the academic part, and I have a proposal with several things that I want to do. I'm also thinking on creating a task force of academic members, and a journalist communication network, and several ideas for research. One of the things that I think we need is to have a research on Latino journalism students and Latino journalism professors, because we have a situation there. So I want to do that, and also met with Leslie and Luis Joel, and we're thinking about doing, he's gonna meet with students, I'm gonna meet with professors, and well, I have a list of different ideas that I want to conduct during my service. So I don't know what would be the way, because I don't want to steal time from our regular meeting, but I do have a series of ideas and proposals for short term and maybe a year or 2 year long as well.
Okay, do you want to send it my way, and we'll take a look at it, and maybe some of it already falls into something else, or maybe not. Maybe it is time to have a committee that specifically looks at that.
Yeah, one of the reasons that I volunteer for this is because I really want to pursue a couple of things on research on taking care of academic members as well.
Excellent. Do I have any volunteers right now for the rapid response committee?
I'll volunteer. This is Cristy.
Thank you, Cristy. I had spoken to McNally Doris about this committee, You still interested, McNally?
Yes, you want me to share it? You're the boss, you're the president. So if you appoint me to be the chair, I'll happy say yes.
All right. Done. I'm open to guidance from our former board members in terms of the size of this committee. I'm open to suggestions on what you guys find works better in terms of, size of this committee. I would think maybe about 5, but you guys tell me if you think it needs to be more than that.
Wasn't it before, I think Yvette, was it the executive session that was automatically on the rapid response? I mean, the executive session, the executive board members?
Yes, and some additional board members as well. I mean, this board can decide what it thinks it might work best, but yeah, probably like 6 or 7 would be helpful.
The problem is rapid response is literally rapid response.
Exactly.
And so people have to be able to respond and then make a decision on behalf of the board. So that is, it's an important component. Usually it depends, every president works it differently, but usually the positions that committee takes is representing the board's position for NAHJ. And so if you're not able to respond, you cannot hold the process. Hold up the process.
Hugo, I look like you. Yes.
I can't unmute myself.
You're unmuted.
Okay. Hi. Okay. Thanks for that. I was trying to chime in. I think from what I've heard, the right size of the committee, 4 or 5 is best, because sometimes the committee needs to have a vote, and you don't want to have an even number, even if it's not binding. So 5 is about the right size. I think I heard a combination of board members, non-board members. I think that's a good idea as well. It gives you different perspective, because regardless of the different backgrounds and where everyone is, eventually you start to kind of fuse, and there's a likeness happening in your thinking. So having folks from the outside gives you a different perspective. And specifically with the rapid response, absolutely, right? Because sometimes it really, you have the luxury of time, and that could be somewhere between minutes to a couple of days. So you really want a committee that is made up of people that are living in different time zones. That you don't want everybody living, in the East Coast or the Midwest, and that kind of gives you a large cover. And then, of course, this is the team that needs to talk to, be talking to Nora and BA and Alberto, as there will be some situations where you could really just lean on how has historically NHJ responded to certain situations, so that you at least have the organization on record, even if it's in social media, we're aware of the situation, we're huddling, and we will be forthcoming with next steps. And then there's going to be issues that definitely require a larger conversation. And one example of that was a situation that we were in with Fox News 2 years ago, or a year ago. That definitely required a little more time than I took. So right on the number, right to have members more than just that are serving on the board, and keep in mind having them in different time zones.
So to be clear, right now, we have McNally and Cristy who have expressed interest, and who else?
I'm happy to help serve on it, because I served on the rapid response team for the last board.
So I think that like an executive member, executive board member, McNally, Cristy, and then like Nora, I'm assuming they'll have to, correspond with you pretty regularly.
Yeah,
and
I was just assuming that would be the case too, that I would chime in and, yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
So we're looking for right now, go ahead, Alberto.
Whatever works for you, but ultimately, it's a committee that isn't necessarily just about you. So, you know, so just something to think about. The other thing, as it relates to this committee, because it is public positions on the organization, they are not covered under director's insurance. Just to be clear, you guys as board members are, but people that are not a part of the board that are serving in that capacity are currently not covered. So that makes, for this committee, may not be appropriate, just something to think about.
Okay, why don't McNally, Yvette, and Cristy and I meet, and we'll hash that out separately and decide whether we want to go ahead and bring in some non-board members. I really like the idea, but I appreciate Alberto bringing up that legal concern. It just provides for more voices.
Personally, I think for the rapid response, since we as board members represent the membership and the rapid response is supposed to represent the organization as a whole, I'm okay with it just being you four. And I know that Hugo had mentioned you might be at a tie vote, but at least for this is one thing where like you would need more unity. So I think this is the one case where I think it's perfectly fine to have not just these 4 specific board members, but also have an even number. That way there can't be, I mean, you're gonna have to come to an agreement if there's a stall between 2 and 2 people. And that would really, I think, represent the organization well.
Okay, it is going to be 4 women, gender-wise, 4 women. So is everybody okay with that?
I think with the appointments, this board is at 77% women. So that's amazing. 77% of the board is women. So it's a natural.
Okay, then I think we have established the Rapid Response Committee.
So we have 2 people from the West Coast, Yvette and Cristy, right? You guys are both in California, and I'm on the East Coast, and
I'm Central.
You're Central. All right. Okay.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, and when you have your new board members that come on, they might be able to serve on those as well.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, why not?
The other thing that might be helpful, McNally, is if you can create a Google Doc for your committee ideas, and Jessica, maybe you can put your ideas in there, and then that way everyone can look at those, especially for the new regional reps that are coming in. I want to make sure that we're inclusive of everyone, and that people can add their names, if they're interested in serving as a chair or as a member, maybe they have other ideas. That way it's a working document.
Yeah, that would be lovely, because I really want to have your feedback, and then I just want to start working on this idea.
I'll start a Google Doc tomorrow morning. I just have it. I just have to plug it in and then give you guys a link so you guys can all get in, and the new board members.
And then Jessica and Luis would be able to add their committees, right?
Yes. So let's just put it on one Google Doc, and I'll do that tomorrow and give everybody access to it, and then the others board members can put in their suggestions.
Make sure that we use everybody's NAHJ email address.
That's what I was thinking. That's why I want to do that tomorrow, so everything is
and
there.
then a reminder that BA is in that committee, because BA is the one that drafts all the messages.
Okay.
Yes, I just wanted to note that for me, it's excellent is postponing the presentation of the students committee that I'm proposing, because I want to have more feedback of all the board members, as I have been doing. But I really wanted to encourage student members to offer themselves to the committees. Pienso que es importante que los comités que lo permitan cuenten con al menos un estudiante que pertenezca a la asociación. I think that when I was part of the ByLaws Committee, my point of view helped out in some points during the process. So it's very important having diversity, and specifically the point of view of student members. I know it's complicated making them engage, but I know also that there are many student members who will love to be part of the work of the board of directors. And I'm pretty ansioso de presentarles mi propuesta, pero tiempo al tiempo. A veces la prisa no es nuestra mejor amiga.
Okay, I think we should probably table the rest of this discussion because it's already, we're already over an hour into this meeting and we still have to.
Are we going to vote on the Rapid Response Committee though?
Yeah, although I don't, it turns out I don't think we need to vote, but I'm happy.
You don't need to vote.
Okay.
And yeah.
So McNelly, did you want to talk to us real quickly about the Foreign Policy magazine?
Yeah, this is really quickly. I got approached by, I don't know if you guys know about the Foreign Policy magazine. They want to add some diversity in their publication by having different voices, Latino voices, and trying to get them engaged into writing about, foreign policy, whether you're an expert in Latin America or Africa or Europe. But what they're proposing to us is to provide us some, our members, some webinars where they can tell the members how they can, who to approach in the publication, how to pitch a story, what they're interested, and they are offering this for free. They ideally want, small sessions, 2 to 30 people, and they're gonna have their editors there. They're gonna have Q&A. And they wrote me something. I asked them to write me something. I'm gonna share it with everybody. But I just think that, they're offering this. Why not offer it to the members who are interested, who might be interested in taking advantage of this, and hopefully, they will write for them at some point. So that's it.
Yeah, you guys, just as a heads up, you're all gonna get all kinds of requests.
Yeah.
We get those requests on average 2 to 5 a week. Everybody wants to be in front of our members and everybody's offering something, and we can't offer everything to everybody. So if they're looking for talent, we encourage them to use the job board that allows them to look at the resumes and also post jobs. I'm not saying this applies here in McNelly. I think those are, those are all things that we're gonna look into, just like Julio Cesar's idea, we were to put into place. So wherever we can plug it in that makes sense, absolutely. But if it involves work on our part, it has to be a sponsorship. It can't just be something we do for free. And they usually want the list of our members, and they promise that we never ever provide anybody our list of membership. So I think Nora and I briefly talked about this. We'll follow up. And Janeth is leading all of the training components. So I think this is a good way to see if we can plug that in sooner rather than later. And maybe also through Palabra. So I think there's opportunity there.
Cool.
Okay, at this time, unless, is there any other new business? Anybody else have something new they want to bring up? Melissa?
Nora, if I may, we received some concern from, and you were succeeding this, Nora, from one of our DC members who's in a Region 3 about a new proposal that the Trump administration is doing to change the rule for I-visas that could impact foreign correspondents in the DC area and beyond in the entire United States. Something that is a particular concern with this proposal that has not yet been passed, but different groups have spoken up, including the Overseas Press Club Organization. And that's why our member approached us to see if we could learn more about this and possibly speak up about this. One of the measures that the Trump administration wants to implement is having foreign correspondents have to reapply for their visas every 240 days. And the concern, of course, being that this could possibly give the US government an easy tool to oust foreign journalists if they find that their work is unfavorable, or the other way around, that foreign governments might use this as an excuse to retaliate against US journalists in their country. So just something I wanted to inform the board about. It is something that is still not official, but foreign correspondents in DC, there's quite a lot of them, especially from Latin America, that live and work here in Washington, DC. So just something to think about if it were to be passed. We don't know who's going to win the election on Tuesday, but regardless, something to think about and how we could possibly support our fellow foreign correspondent members, our international members that may be impacted by this.
Yes, absolutely. And I think actually, because they notified us kind of late, I think that day
Very
was
late. Yeah.
But,
so it was a little late.
But I think BA, did we not manage to get in?
Oh, I didn't. BA
So-
always on it.
It's okay. I just dropped it in the chat right now.
Awesome, BA.
So we posted everywhere. We did actually get a comment into the DHS and filed that appropriately in time. We also, to give you guys some context, have been talking with Bricio Segovia out of DC. As you all may know, a few months ago, about 70 journalists at VOA were affected because of Trump's appointment with Mr. Pak. And moving forward, that's been a really big issue. Obviously now they're putting more pressure that's gonna cause adversity against our foreign journalists. So we're talking with the Association of Foreign Correspondents, WHCA, and the UN Correspondents Association to make even more moves on this. But in the meantime, we did file that comment appropriately with DHS.
Thank you, BA. Thank you so much and for moving on that so quickly. So appreciated.
Of course, yeah. But let's
okay,
keep talking.
Guys, we are running so late now. It's getting super late. So I'm going to open it up to the public for public comments. If any of our members who stuck it out with us have anything they want to share with us.
To make that motion, Nora, motion to open to public comment?
Yes, go ahead.
Well, making the motion to open for public comment.
You don't need to make a motion for this. Just
Yay!
Yeah.
We need to make a motion after the public comment to go into executive session and keep track of the time.
Got it.
So have we opened up the chat?
Yes, the chat is open and also people are able to unmute themselves if they choose to do that.
If you could raise your hand, we'll let you speak if there's anybody in the audience who would like to speak to the board.
We have one chat.
I
think there's a chat about from Michelle Ragavan.
And Daniela Ibarra has her hand raised as well.
Michelle, go ahead and unmute and you can tell us.
No, I just, when you were discussing the rapid response team, I think that it makes sense to have committee members who are voting, but if you wanted to have a little bit more support with non-voting members, that would be members who could be an advisory to the committee in the same fashion that we did with the election committee. I think that it would be very useful. It could help with the workload and also give a few other opinions, even if those who didn't have the final vote. So that's an advisory. Also, my computer cut out while Melissa was talking, and I know that she was saying some amazing things, but I wanted to just make sure that it was said. I think it's really important that to get membership involved and wanting to run, we need to, well ahead of the elections, have people trained into how to run, how to be on the board, what all of that means, so that we have people who are on the bench ready to go for the next time so that we keep people engaged.
Michelle is part of our advisory committee.
I have a question for you, Michelle. So, you know, in the event that like the rapid response team does decide to expand, it might open up an opportunity for, you know, someone who's not on the board. Would you be concerned about what Alberto said and that like you would not be protected in the same way as board members would?
In terms of a lawsuit?
Alberto, if you want to expand on that.
Yeah, actually, I think we need to go through the legal process first and find out before we have any discussion on this further.
So can we have non-board people on a rapid response team?
At this point, I'm telling you, they are not covered legally if someone were to sue for a statement or a position the organization takes.
Okay. Again, just in an effort to try to keep this moving, I saw Daniela Ibarra had her hand up.
Yes, that's me. Hey, good evening. I have a question, more less of a comment, but earlier when we were talking about the regional directors and you had mentioned that somebody had applied for that region one director position, what was the reasoning again for them not being able to be appointed?
The reason was that they are not in Puerto Rico. They work in New York, though they do work for a company that's based in Puerto Rico. And so we went back and forth and we probably should consult with our folks who are the experts on the bylaws, whether they think that, that would work or not.
So according to the bylaws, the person can work or reside. And I think the consensus of the group, unless I'm wrong in expressing this, was that we did not want that chapter to feel disenfranchised. And we didn't think that it was the ideal situation to have someone in that position who was not currently on the island. So if I'm mischaracterizing that, like someone feel free to correct me. But
that was the consensus.
Okay, yeah, because that's what I thought you had mentioned. So I looked up the bylaws and I read that it said must work or reside. So that's what I was just curious what the reasoning behind that was.
Yeah, she's a wonderful candidate. We're just, again, we're stuck in that spot that she's not in the island. She works in New York. She's in New York.
However, I do want to also mention that there were questions raised with how particular the situation, how special the situation is in Puerto Rico, that we might have to revisit the way that we approach Region 1. So although at this time the consensus is that we would prefer someone living and working both in Puerto Rico, it doesn't mean that this will be the position forever. That's just the position right now. And then I think everyone did agree that like things with Puerto Rico are very, very particular. So we might have to revisit that discussion, or that structure rather, as a whole, at the very least for the island.
Okay, thank you. I was just curious, so.
Thank you. There's nothing else. I think we need to move on to the next portion. Do I have a motion?
Motion to go into executive session? I will make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay.
And I'm